can start now. And so hello and welcome to another in our series of webinars. And today we're going to hear about how Cohesity can solve some of the biggest security challenges faced by many healthcare trusts. Just a couple of housekeeping points to start with. So we are recording this session and we'll send that recording to you afterwards. You're all automatically muted. So if you do have a question, please just pop it in the chat function and we'll look to answer those right at the end of the session. Today, we're going to hear from Mark Howie, who is Sales Account Director at LIMA, and also Rhys Lewis, who is the Senior Public Account Sector Executive for Cohesity. And I'm going to hand straight over without further delay to Mark, who's going to begin.
Thank you, Jem. And yeah, it's always interesting when you try and run these events using webinar technology. It always poses a bit of a challenge, but yeah, we're all here now. So yeah, thank you very much for everyone for joining us and taking a little bit of time out of your busy days. As Gemma mentioned, it's the second in our series of healthcare webinars. This and one that I've been really looking forward to personally. I've been working quite a lot with Rhys over the last 18 months, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later in the session. And this technology is for me quite groundbreaking, really, in terms of helping NHS trusts overcome some significant challenges around data protection, particularly when we talk about security and compliance, which I think is in the sort of current modern threat landscape that we're all faced with in cyber. Security and compliance around data protection has never been more important. So, as Jem mentioned, my name is Mark Howie. I'm a Senior Account Director. I've been with LIMA for 9 years and in the industry for some 20 plus, which does make me feel a little bit old when I say it out loud. I've primarily worked within the healthcare sector for the last 7 or 8 years in our healthcare team at LIMA. So, lived and breathed a lot of the challenges and problems that the trust have faced over the last few years, and hopefully we've been on hand to help solve some of those through the use of technology. So, LIMA partnered with Cohesity around about 18 months ago as a strategic vendor partner relationship for us, and I think I'm going to pass over in a few minutes for Rhys to talk a little bit more, and give some background about Cohesity and kind of talk through the sort of the platforms and the offerings and the technology that they have, and sort of I guess help you guys to understand what kind of challenges Cohesity as a technology can help you overcome, particularly when we talk about pressures that you're facing with mandated insights through NHSX. I think first and foremost, I'm conscious that there's quite a few people on the session today who haven't really engaged with LIMA in the past, and I thought I'd just take you through a little bit of background about our business, kind of what we do, and ultimately how we engage with our customers when we're talking about technology. So I think one of the big USPs for LIMA really is around is how we engage, and we take an insight-led approach to how we engage with customers and organisations to when understanding and talking through IT transformation. What we try and look to do is strive to gain a deep understanding of the organisation's vision and objectives, and also then help to sort of carve out the kind of business and IT challenges that the organisations face that might hold you back from delivering on that vision. I think once we've gathered all that insight, coupled with our expertise in technology, we look to try and help deliver a strategic IT roadmap that will support overcoming those challenges, and ultimately delivering on business vision. So we've got a proven track record of delivering within the NHS. Next slide, please, Jem. And that's a range of services and solutions that we've built up over many years. You'll see a few names down the side. We deal not only with acute care in NHS trusts, but also primary care with CCGs, and also a number of CSUs that obviously offer a supporting role to some of those organisations. And the range of services that I'm talking about, things like delivering hybrid cloud platforms to accelerate digital transformations through the delivery of EPR. It recently supported Gloucestershire Trust to deliver EPR in a record-breaking time of 6 months from point of order to go live. Quite transformational for them, and particularly leading up to the pandemic hitting and putting them in a stronger position to be able to deal with the demand that presented. We've also supported a couple of other trusts in initiatives around collaboration, so working more closely with CCGs, breaking down barriers around health and social care and acute care, and kind of delivering collaborative workspace technology to allow nurses to access digital patient records from anywhere on any device in a secure way, which again has been quite transformational. And I think lastly, covering off, around data protection and compliance, TZESC and we're an organisation that we've partnered with Cohesity to recently deliver their data protection transformation program, and they're just sort of coming through the back end of implementing the technology and already seen some benefits. So I think, like I say, data protection is a key area and a fundamental part of any IT platform. It always has been, going way back when, data backups and disaster recovery and that kind of thing is obviously fundamental to any platform. But I think more recently, as I mentioned, with that threat landscape becoming more complex and mature, the security and compliance of data protection and your data backups is really, really, really important. And I think the key thing for me is that this Cohesity technology that Rhys is going to come on to talk to shortly, it's been designed from the ground up to sort of help protect against more modern threat. And Rhys will take you through some of this, but if we talk about some of the pressures that you guys are facing from NHSX around things like immutable backups, no one does it like Cohesity. They're out there as a market leader from a technology perspective, and it really is quite advanced. No one else is doing it. So, like I say, I don't want to steal too much of Rhys's thunder, so I am going to pass over to him now. I am sticking around till the end of the session, and as Jem said, there is a Q&A section. So more than happy to answer any questions that you guys might want to throw up in the chat. Over to you, Rhys.
Thanks, Mark. That's a really good overview. I think you covered some of the elements really well. I think some of the key things that you mentioned and what we're going to cover in the overview is around the mandates from people at NHSX around bringing immutable backups, and the threat landscape changing over the last few years is a really important one. And that's something which we'll touch on around why we're so focused on this and why it's important. But it is a very different market now to what it was even 5 years ago, but certainly beyond that. So, go on to the next one, please, Gemma. So just quickly a bit about me. So I'm Rhys Lewis. Like Gemma said, I'm working the public sector team here at Cohesity as the account executive. I've had quite a background in healthcare, now focused on the healthcare market for sort of the last 9 years. So worked with a number of different trusts across different types of organisations. And one of the reasons why I wanted to come to Cohesity was it's a combination of that. It's a really important market there, like Mark says. However, it's also the technology we have, the message we have, and the approach we're taking into this market is really fitting well. In particular, I think with the NHS market, we've got some really strong messages in there, and I think that's one of the big reasons why, out of all the verticals across public sector within the UK, we've got more NHS Trust customers than any other vertical in there for some of these reasons we're going to go through. So some of the things which I'm going to cover today, I'm going to do with some of the areas which I think we excel in and which are really important for the healthcare market in the UK. There's things like simplicity. The healthcare market has been severely underfunded for quite a while now. So how can things be made easier for NHS Trust and the technical teams? How can we have a flexible approach to how you want to consume this? Do you want it on-premise? Do you want it in the public cloud? And we'll go through how we can cover those areas, but also from a security point of view. We are a modern data protection solution that has it's been disruptive in the market from a security point of view. We are secure by design. We're secure from our foundation of our organisation, and this is a really important message and really important time for the NHS Trust. So first of all, I'm going to start off with a little bit of background around Cohesity. We've been around for 8 to 9 years now, founded by Mohit Aaron, who was one of the co-founders of Nutanix. He was also one of the driving forces behind the Google file system. And everything that Mohit did across those organizations and coming to Cohesity, it was how can he make things simple? How can he make how people use it more agility in a cloud-like manner? And then moving forward into the world where we are today, how can you use this across public clouds and not just an on-premise solution as well? And I think that's one of the benefits of being an organization that's come around in the last 8 to 9 years is we've been able to take things from a modern approach where things like integration with public cloud and ransomware protection, they weren't things that people had to think about 20 plus years ago when they invented their technology. everything we've done over the time and everything we're doing moving forward is around how can we make it flexible for customers, how they want to consume it, and how can we provide a secure platform as there is in the market. Now you see there at the bottom left, there's organizations like HPE, Google, Cisco, Amazon. They're technology partners for us, but they're also investors. So they've seen what we're doing in their market, they've seen our technology, the approach, they've seen what customers think of it, and they've wanted to get behind it financially. But like I said, they are technology partners as well. So what I'm going to talk around is, it's a software-defined platform that can be run on-premise, on our own branded hardware, on the likes of HPE, Cisco, among others. And then from a cloud point of view, it can be used within AWS, Google, Azure, etc. It's completely your choice again, which we'll touch on shortly. So on to the next one, Gemma, where I'll go through just an overview of some of the challenges that people have and give you a bit of flavour around why people are looking to simplify their environment. So if we start off with looking at NHS Trust, you might have typical primary storage, virtual environments, physical environments, databases, database dedicated environments, but also because of the nature of the industry, the amount of data that gets generated is huge. The different types of data there is enormous. So you have things like EPR, PACS, cardiology, digital pathology, etc., which can create a huge amount of data of different kinds. And because of the nature of the work that's being done, often the data needs to be kept for the lifetime of the patient, or depending on the trust, sometimes indefinitely. What this creates is big image repositories or big file record repositories, which need to be stored, archived for a long time. And this is the same across the backup world as well. So you have your backup software, dedicated backup disk storage, perhaps, backup servers. A lot of NHS trusts still use tape because they like the idea of having that comfort of that extra layer of protection. Depending on the backup software, then it's potentially a cloud gateway is needed. And what this creates, as you can see, is a lot of different silos, lots of different point solutions across all these different types of the infrastructure. It's got multiple different management consoles, not integrated. You have to learn new technologies, learn new processes. From a support point of view, people have lots of different supports from different vendors. It can be inconsistent. And then when it comes to doing upgrades across it, it's not just as simple as we want to upgrade this element. Often it involves interoperability checks across different layers of the infrastructure, and you have to go, okay, in order to upgrade this part of it, I actually need to upgrade these other 3 or 4 parts of it to make sure it's still compatible and supported moving forward. And that's a real challenge for NHS Trust, because often this requires downtime, and in a 24/7 world that you work in, it can be difficult and very, very disruptive to do that. But also then from a security point of view, dark data is a real problem for NHS Trust because of the number of different clinical systems, clinicians, shadow IT with clinicians often doing their own things and maybe having their own setup for their own bespoke applications. One of the questions we often ask is do you know where all your data is? Can you be confident? Can you be sure that your data is backed up and secured in a manner that you want? And we're working really closely with the National Cybersecurity Centre to follow their approaches and understand the approaches that they're taking out to trust that they want following. Things like the 3-2-1 approach of making sure you've got multiple copies of data in different locations. But also, as Mark mentioned there, the mutable backups element, that is a really fundamental conversation right now. NHSX, the NCSC, these kind of organisations are saying that this is absolutely what people should be getting, truly immutable backups for next time they look at a data protection solution. And then we move on to the next one. We look at the public cloud, being if you move on to the next slide, please, Gemma. If we look at the public cloud, public cloud is a really, really good way of doing things if it's used in the right manner. So we're seeing people take a kind of cloud smart approach these days. I think looking back 5 or 6 years ago in the NHS market, there was, not always, but there was a bit of resistance to utilising public cloud, things like hundreds of different bespoke applications that were created and designed before cloud was a consideration, and so perhaps not supported out in the cloud. There were concerns around budgets not being set up to work in a cloud-like model, and then also security. That was a key reason why people didn't necessarily adopt the public cloud as much as some other industries. With where's my data going to be stored? Is this patient data going to go outside the UK or into the US? Who can access it? And it stopped people wanting to use it. Some of those blockers have been removed over the last few years. I think it was 4 years ago, NHS Digital saying NHS Trust can store key patient data outside the UK as long as it's still within Europe. And so these blockers have gone, and as we've seen over the last few years, people have started to adopt the public cloud more for certain services. And now when we speak to Trust, it's not uncommon to hear them say we're using Azure for certain things, we're using AWS for others. I've no doubt over the next few years, Google will become stronger in the market as well. And while this creates greater services and some of these things are absolutely right to use, it also does create more silos, a more fragmented approach still. And it doesn't have a single approach to doing things across these multiple clouds. And you end up with not just infrastructure sprawl on-premise, but it can be the same within the public cloud. And let's move on to the next slide. We're going to talk around how we take an approach to try and get you away from some of these complexities. And the simplicity behind what we do, however you choose to run it, whether it's on-premise or in the public cloud, this is fundamentally the heart of making it a more simple approach for NHS trusts. We have the Cohesity Data platform, so you can, if you want to, you continue to run existing backup softwares and use it as a disk target. But then moving beyond that, we have our Data Protect solution, which can remove the need for backup software. It comes in an integrated platform that can remove the need for dedicated disk storage, dedicated backup servers, tapes, cloud gateways, etc., and run on this integrated platform with one management console. Beyond that, you'll also see there that we have NFS, SMB, S3 protocols, so we can do native file storage, object storage within the platform. Where we don't position this is not for tier one applications. So if you've got a mission critical application that runs on file that needs extreme performance, it's not designed for that. It's designed more for the long set of archives, the image repositories, the kind of scale out NAS solutions that people may have, or object repositories for storing patient records, images, video recordings, etc., which I say need to be kept sometimes indefinitely depending on the trust retention policies. We're an excellent option for that, for being able to store these kind of workloads for a long time and extremely low cost. But also then bringing in the simplicity point, you can look to remove the need for those dedicated scale-out NAS or object storage type repositories, and you consolidate all these kind of workloads into one single solution that can have one management console across all those, one consistent, excellent support process that our customers love. But then also when you're looking to do upgrades to the system, it's just a couple of clicks, extremely simple, and you can do these non-disruptively during business hours. So you don't need to request downtime, because I know for some NHS trusts it can take months and months and months to actually get approval for downtime. You don't need to do that. You can continue to upgrade these so you can take advantage of new features, new security offerings that come out with new releases. So then if we look at the next one, I'm going to talk around some of the security reasons, and Mark touched on it. It's a change in landscape, and that's exactly what we've seen. And where we are today is very different to where the ransomware threat was a few years ago. And we see this when we talk to CISOs or security officers, security managers, where they say a few years ago their focus was all on ransomware prevention solutions. How can we get something in place which is going to try and prevent ransomware attacks? Because in the early days, the first wave was more around they'd get into your system, they'd try and charge it to get back up and running. So what people looked at doing was, we're going to get out of this hole by using backups. These people are really clever. They spend all day, all week trying to find new ways to get into systems. So what they then decided to do was breach the system, destroy your backups, so organizations couldn't get back from the backups they had. And this is where the driver from the likes of NCSC and NHSX for mutual backups has come in, because this is fundamental to your ransomware protection message and something which all trusts should be looking at. And then moving forward, where we are and where these people are moving to is they're looking to get into your system, steal your data. If you don't pay the ransom, they're willing to sell it to the highest bidder, which brings in leaks of data, breaches of compliance, big fines, loss of reputation. And I'll touch on later how the kind of approach we're taking to try and cover these kind of threats. So then when I move on to the next one, as I said, this is a platform approach. This is not a dedicated on-premise solution, and that is it. This is however you want to do it. You can run this on-premise. It can be all on-premise. It can be all in the public cloud. You can run it on-premise and across multiple public clouds. The benefit for you is you get to choose it in the performance model, the retention model, the cost model that's right for your trust. But you can do this through one single management console. So if you can have two on-premise solutions at different locations. You could have backups into multiple different clouds. But when you log onto that simple single management console, you're just seeing the clusters across everywhere. You get the same functionality, same capabilities, same approach without having to learn new things or worrying about whether it's the same thing. So you can do that. So when I come on to the next one, we're going to talk around, next thing we're going to focus on is how fast we can do things, how secure we are. These are some of the key reasons why people are investing in our technology. Some of the key areas where NHS trusts really like us are some of the things there. The ransomware protection and instant mask restore are absolutely fundamental to what we do. But like I said at the start, we have a modern data protection. It's disruptive. Enterprises, it's ready for all kind of enterprises, all NHS trusts, sizes of NHS trust, whatever you're doing, it's ready for it. And I think whatever services you're delivering, it can really cater to the needs. And the fast restore times, the simple approach, the security hardened solution are some of the key reasons why NHS trusts are really loving what we're doing. So if we go on to the next chart, this is a example from a year-long POC that we did with an enterprise customer. They're now a Cohesity customer after the POC. But the process they wanted to take, and they wanted to do this POC to try and evaluate various different scenarios. What was important to them? How business impact? How likely risk was it? What they did today? How quickly did they recover? How quickly did they want to get back? And what could the various next generation data protection solutions they were looking at? What could they actually do for them as a result? And if we look at the one at the bottom, the large scale malware attack, because that was one of the key decision makers for them. They looked at that as a extremely high business impact, which is understandable. At the time, they said the likelihood was low. I think when we speak to most trusts now, they're more at the likelihood is medium to high. Too many public sector organisations in the UK have been hit. They're all taking a lot of people speak to taking the approach of it's not if they get hit, it's when, and they need to be ready for this. When this organisation did the POC, they established that to get back from a large scale malware attack with what they did today in their existing backup solution, it would take a month. That wasn't acceptable for them moving forward. Their goal was to make sure they get back up and running inside a day. When they did the POC with us, they tested this. The results were we were able to get over 2,000 virtual machines back in 47 minutes. And this is really important. You think of the criticality of the work of NHS trusts. Any kind of downtime is unacceptable. The longer downtime there are, the more risk to life, the more risk to potentially having to shut hospitals or move patients between hospitals. So being able to recover this kind of enterprise level organisation, number of machines to get them back up and running at that speed is really critical and a big reason why a number of NHS trusts have invested in us. So we're going to move on to the next one. We're going to focus on the security elements and focus on the framework that we have. Like I say, we're a secure by design organisation. I'm not going to go through each individual point in here because that would take quite a while and we haven't got that time today. But if you would like to, if anyone would like to have a follow-up session and go through any area of these, we can absolutely spend some time going through our approach to each element of this. But just to pick out a few, some of the key ones are the mutable file system. Like I said at the beginning, Mohit and his background to founding Cohesity, he was one of the big driving forces behind the Google file system. So it's in his background to create file systems, and that's what he did when he came to Cohesity. He wanted to create a file system that was immutable from the beginning. And the foundation of everything we do, everything is immutable. And that's something which every NHS trust should be taking into account when they're making decisions around data protection solution. Also, you notice things like air gap, being able to put things into a clean room type facility. And then when we move on to looking at the control and restrict, there's things like MFA, RBAC, which should absolutely be any essential solution. Whatever solution people buy moving forward, those kind of things should be in there. But there's things like no service backdoors. And we see this as a really important message for NHS trusts because 10, 15 years ago, when organisations were delivering backup solutions, ransomware protection wasn't a threat. It wasn't in their thoughts around what they were doing. And one of the big selling points for traditional backup vendors was their support capabilities, how they could get people, how they could fix support cases without even their customers knowing that there was an issue. So often what customers would say is their backup vendor would go to them and we fixed your problem overnight, we're telling you about it, so you don't have to worry about it, it's all fixed. And that was something which customers 10, 15 years ago would love because it was a really, really proactive support capability. You fast that forward to today, in the modern world and the threat that there is from ransomware, this is a real danger. If any kind of scenario where people can access your system without your approval is an instant threat to what people can do. And the people who are looking to target your systems, they will look online, they will look at white papers, they will see if backup solutions have backdoors, they will identify that as a way to get into people's system and look to hack it. With Cohesity, we made a decision to shut the back door so that support engineers can only access your system if you give an approval. And we think this is absolutely fundamental to securing that risk, taking that risk away so that nobody can access your system. Then we move through the pyramid and go through things like data lock technology, which gives people the capability to guarantee that backups that have happened can't be deleted. Even if there's a feature, it gets turned off at some point. Say there was an internal threat, someone turned off the data lock capability and went back to try and delete backups. They can't delete backups that have been done with data lock on. Moving beyond that as well, there's also audit trails, so that if any kind of activity like this happened, it would instantly highlight it to the organization to say there may be potential internal threat here for you. And then we go into areas like detection and respond. We have ransomware anomaly detection. We are an AI-driven platform, so we're constantly taking in information that's being generated. What you're doing with your platform, what's normal, what's not. So we can spot patterns to say what is happening right now. We see this as normal. And then if we see something that is going on that is very different to what happens on a normal day, we can raise it with your trust to say, this appears as an anomaly to us. Is that correct? And you can go, no, this is fine. We know what this is. We will learn from that and we move forward. Or we can go, yeah, okay, let's go through some of the steps to get you out of the process now then. And then when it comes on to respond, see there, the key one of the key ones is the instant mass restore. And that is our capability and why we're able to deliver that 2,000 virtual machines back up in 47 minutes. Our ability to store a huge amount of workloads and virtual machines data back quickly is at the heart of this. And like I said, the criticality of what NHS trusts do, how fast you can get back your services back up and running and avoid any clinical delays is fundamental to what you do. So when we move on to the next one, we appreciate that this is just an element of it. What we do is an incredibly hard and secure platform that's secure in the data protection layer, but we don't believe it should just stop at that. It should be an architecture across your organization for how you go about it and the approach you take across various things. So yeah, we start with an immutable file system, and everything should be the heart of anything people do moving forward, in my opinion. Then there are things like MFA, access control, monitoring, detection and analytics, etc., to be able to give you as much information and be able to get back up and running as quickly as possible. But it's also a partnership, and how can we have an architecture that delivers a security, harden the platform from a security point of view as you can. So it's things like working with the likes of Cisco and HPE, who deliver extremely hardened platforms from a security point of view. If you want to run things on premise, then people like Palo Alto Networks, Varonis, just picking on another one, something like Tenable, for instance, where vulnerability scanning can happen. So working with Tenable or something like that, where we can put our backups into a clean room type vanilla facility. Then if you wanted to use something like Tenable to do vulnerability scanning, you can quickly spot any bad data, remediate that. So you're ensuring that you're not bringing any bad data back into the environment, and what you're restoring is a clean backup, so you can get back up and running quickly, knowing you're not going to reintroduce threats into the organization. So this is the kind of approach we're taking, and something which, again, we can go through. We're taking an approach of how can we look into the data governance elements, and how can we help try and work with these organizations to provide a really hardened architecture against ever-evolving threats of ransomware. So now if we move on to the next one, but to say, if there are any questions, that we'll have some time for questions at the end to cover everything. So if there are any more questions, then feel free to add them in. But a couple more things which I wanted to go through before that. Just want to give you an idea of what our technology looks like. It's a scale out cluster, node-based architecture. So you can start with what you need, and you can grow as and when you need to in a cloud-like manner with a very, very simple scale-out approach. A couple of other things as well, which I think are really important. We have industry-leading storage efficiency capabilities. No other solution in our space can deliver the levels of dedupe, compression, etc., that we can deliver. Where this is really important, and where NHS trusts, one of the reasons why they really love us, is we license ourselves on a capacity basis. So how you pay for us is what capacity that you need to back up the Cohesity. If you say to us you're currently backing up 100 terabytes, we wouldn't look to license you for that 100 terabytes. We would license you based on how much we can shrink your data down to. We can shrink data down better than anyone else in the industry. So if we can shrink it down to 50 terabytes, we license you for 50 terabytes. So NHS trusts are really maximising on cost savings by using Cohesity's industry-leading storage efficiency technologies. But then, like I said at the beginning, we're a software-defined platform. So this can be done on run within a virtual machine, within a hypervisor if you want to. It could be run on an on-premise solution on the hardware platform of your choice, or it could be done in the public cloud. And if you want to do a combination of all those, like I said, this is a single management process, and it doesn't matter how you do it. It's completely flexible to your choice. And then coming on to the final one, the next slide after this one, this is just here to give you an overview of the kind of thing we can do. So we can take on all different kinds of workloads. I think M365 there, for instance, which is a really important topic of conversation for us at the moment. from all different platforms, all different types of workloads. NHS Trust, as I say, hundreds of different applications, lots of different types of workloads. It can cater for all those different types of workloads, databases, etc., into this single integrated platform, delivered how you want to. Do you want to do it on premise? Do you want it delivered to you as a service? It can take the approach of what's right for you, what's best for that individual NHS Trust, and we can work with your approach to deliver with the best levels of protection, the fastest recovery times, in the most secure manner, in a cloud on-premise or cloud-like approach that's right for you. So those are some of the reasons why the NHS Trust have invested in Cohesity. If there's any areas which you'd like to go into more detail, then we're more than happy to set up follow-up sessions and go through these kind of things. And then, yeah, if there are any questions, then I see a few have come in already, then we can go through that.
Thanks, Rhys. So yes, we do have a few questions. So we've got one here in the chat. If I have a hybrid environment, is it possible to? Sorry, I can't read the. Let me just.
I think it's port licenses.
Is it port? Thanks, Mark. I can't make it out because I've got an icon.
Yeah, that was the same. It was kind of like Wheel of Fortune style. Guess the word then. Yes, so that's one of the benefits. So it gives really good flexibility around. It's like, because we're not tied to a hardware platform. We're a software company, so it's all around what's right for your organisation. And this is really important, particularly within NHS, because like I said, a few years ago, there were a lot of restrictions why people weren't using public cloud, and valid reasons why there was a bit of nervousness around doing it. A lot of those restrictions have now gone, and people are taking the approach of what's the right model. So often the approach might be, we'll have a certain amount on premise, we might have a month's worth of backups on premise, and then we want to archive to the cheapest possible methods in the cloud for the long-term cheap backups. But what's really important to remember is we don't know what legislation is going to change. So while now it may be a big driver to utilize public cloud, we don't know what's going to happen over the next 2-3 years. There may be a driver to bring more back, or there may be a big driver to get away from on-premise completely. So our approach to being able to change your licenses to how you want. Do you want it on-premise now? Okay, that's fine. But in a few years' time, if you want to start moving those into the public cloud, then you've got the capability to do that. So you can react to any legislation changes, any guidance from NHS England or NHS Digital, etc., to be able to do what's right for your organisation as those changes develop, and as your organisation may want to move more and more to a multi-cloud environment, you've got the flexibility to do that.
Thanks, Rhys. And then a couple more. We've got a question about is your M365 backup hosted in the cloud?
Yeah, so that, like I said, that's a really hot topic at the moment. We're having a lot of conversations around M365 backup. I think a lot of people when they adopted M365 were doing the native backups with Azure, and over time Microsoft have recommended that people look at dedicated backup solutions outside of that. We're having a lot of success in this space, and for a couple of reasons really. We can do it in the cloud, yes. So we have the option of backing it up into the cloud or onto on-premise. So depending on where the trust is, you can do either. Majority do look to do it in the cloud, and our offerings in what we call data management as a service, which is actually hosted in AWS. And one of the reasons NHS Trust really like this being in AWS is it really falls in line with the NCSC's 3-2-1 kind of approach of this service is in Azure, so we don't really want the backups in Azure because that is having it in the same location, and people say the eggs might be all in the one basket. But having it in AWS, you're having multiple copies of that data in different locations, so people really like it for that reason. But also another reason why we have big success in this area is most organisations in this space just do it license it on a per user basis. We can actually do it in a per user or on a capacity basis. So whenever we're working with an NHS Trust, we will look at how many users do you have, but we'll also look at what's the capacity of your environment. So we're working with one NHS Trust at the moment where they have a lot of thousands of users, but they've got a small capacity in this space. So when we look at it, it actually works in a lot more cost effective to be able to do it in a capacity model. And in some cases, we're seeing half the cost of people being able to do it in a capacity model to per user. So we're able to really offer a cost-effective models in comparison to other people in this space. So those reasons of having the flexibility to host it where you want, being able to host it in AWS away from Azure, and have the ability to license it either user or capacity and choose the most cost-effective model for the trust. Really having a lot of successful conversations on that topic.
Great, thanks, Rhys. And I think you did touch on this during the presentation, but there's a question: does it work with hypervisors?
Yes, yeah. So multiple hypervisors. Obviously, VMware is the most common, but yeah, and we still see some Hyper-V out there, and then things like AHV with Nutanix market. So yeah, we work with multiple hypervisors. So what you're running, we'll be able to support it.
Fantastic. The last one is how many are commonly using cloud for backups, would you say?
Yeah, I'd say it's growing. I'd still say there's a heavy footprint on premise. I think I touched on it just before. Actually, I think a lot of people are looking at do we actually access backups after a month? Not really. Majority of the time, it's in that first month, and if it's not done, it's not going to be accessed. So typically, the conversations we're having now are what's going to be the cheapest way of storing backups after a month, and the answer to that is it's store it in the cheapest possible cloud type environment. So let's push it out to the cheapest cloud tier, the cloud provider of your choice, and have those backups on premise if case the most likely ones to access over the first 2 weeks to a month. Have that somewhere where it's going to be quicker to get back, and then the conversations tend to be where's the cheapest option of doing it after that. So it tends to be that, but yeah, we're having a lot more conversations now where people are saying we want one on-premise backup, then can we have something like a DR as a service from a backup point of view, or backup as a service, and those are the kind of conversations becoming more and more relevant right now. And I think that's one of the strengths of our messages. It really doesn't matter where you are up to in the process. If you're at the beginning or you're a bit further down the line, you're looking to have everything in the cloud. We've got a conversation that can be right for any NHS trust, where they're up to in their minds of where we need to be from a data protection point of view.
Thanks, Rhys. And that was a really, really compelling, interesting presentation about how you can support NHS trusts. Thanks so much. So I'm going to hand over to Mark now just to wrap up and chat through the test drive, Mark.
Yeah, thanks, Jem, and yeah, thanks, Rhys. Really, really interesting. I mean, who'd have thought data protection could be such an interesting topic? It really is, very, very relevant, and for the current times, particularly with organisations like NHS. So, yeah, thanks again, and thanks to everyone for joining us today. I hope you all found it insightful and interesting. As Jem mentioned, there is a sort of an engagement piece that we've been working with Cohesity on. Delivering to customers. It's called a test drive, and essentially what that is a workshopping session, and ultimately the ability to potentially look at a POC on some of the technology. And so yeah, just to sort of call out, we're more than happy to come and talk to any individual organisation if you want to explore a little bit further about what this technology can do for you, around your data protection, security, and compliance. Just reach out after the session, and we'll be more than happy to come and see you. So thanks very much for your time, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.